Welcome to NeoUnrealist. A story from March of last year, if you remember, when our favorite male Canadian citizen, one Lawrence Southern, was in the French port of Calais, and we learned that Lawrence Southern was being detained by the UK border police. Southern wanted to cross the English Channel into the United Kingdom to interview Tommy Robinson. This was before Tommy got locked up. They isolated Southern in an interrogation room, and they asked questions on political beliefs, Christian extremism, nice things like, the desire to drive a truck into groups of Muslims. The type of questions, you might get landing at Heathrow Airport on a tourist visa. Yeah, right. Lawrence Southern, I think by then got the idea that, something wasn't right. And I think her suspicions were confirmed when they handed her a pamphlet detailing what she could expect as someone being held under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act of 2000. Yes, this menace to society, this 23-year-old young woman, was being held under a law that was passed with the premise of halting members of transnational terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah from entering the United Kingdom. Now, ultimately, after calls back and forth between Calais and London, they had to come up with a new rationale because they knew it would be ridiculed if they were to use the Terrorism Act seriously to justify not letting Lawrence Southern into the country. So they defaulted to the more general discretion that the British Home Office has to refuse entry to any individual if they consider that his or her presence, or Zir, I guess, that their presence wouldn't be conducive to the public good. The pretext that they ultimately settled on, the fig leaf that they rested their case upon, was that Southern passed out a racist flyer, quote-unquote, on a previous visit to the UK when she was in Luton. They deemed it a racist flyer. Now, let's have a look at this allegedly racist flyer, shall we? It starts off, it says at the top there, Allah is gay. Well, I'm not seeing any racism there. As a claim of this about the sexuality of the Abrahamic God, it would seem to be that's the province of religion or theology. So is the UK state now taking an official position on the sexuality of God? I must have missed that. Allah is trans. Again, still not seeing any racism, as the debate over what God's gender is as old as the concept of God itself. I mean, some hold that God is a man. Others say God is a woman. Some say God has no sex. Some say he's all sexes at once. I mean, in a sense, perhaps God could be argued to be trans in that respect. But once again, for the purpose of this argument, not seeing the racism. Allah is a lesbian. I mean, that's the same basically as saying God is gay, except you're implying that God is, of the female sex. Allah is intersex. That's in the same vein as saying Allah is trans. It's really just a claim that, is the UK taking the position that Allah is cisgender? I mean, is saying otherwise now criminal? I must have missed that part too. Allah is feminist. Now this is ridiculous, because I'm guessing all feminists, who I'm told there are a lot of in the United Kingdom, believe, at least the ones that believe in the Abrahamic deity, the ones who are Christian, Jewish, or Muslim. Wouldn't all those feminists not say the same thing? Shall the UK ban all the Christian, Jewish, and Muslim feminists for believing this allegedly racist statement? Allah is queer. That seems to me to be a subset of saying Allah is gay. I mean, a religious or theological claim that has nothing to do with race. Allah is all of us. Okay, where is the racism in that statement? I could see some of the more hardline Muslims getting offended by that, maybe calling it blasphemy, but on its face, no, it's about as inclusive a statement as you could make about a deity. To say that a divine entity is all of us implies that everyone has an element of divinity in them. I'm not seeing the racism here. As a matter of fact, in taking this flyer as a whole, I can really only think of one possible group who would react viscerally to this flyer, and that would be the sort of people who, I don't know, might leave the UK, go to Syria or Iraq, join ISIS to make war on the infidels and the Munafiqun. Just an observation, but maybe someone like, I don't know, Shamima Begum. This wonderful human being, this Shamima Begum, she ran away from home 4 years ago at the tender age of 15 with 2 of her friends to leave the United Kingdom and join the Islamic State in Syria. Because, you know, that was the popular fad at the time, right? You remember 2015. I mean, when you saw your first beheading video put out by the Islamic State, some dude in black sawing in a mask sawing off the head of an infidel, didn't you say to yourself, gee, I want to move to Syria where they saw people's heads off and broadcast it on the internet like it was the Ice Bucket Challenge? You know, it was like sort of an adventure. Because when the intrepid young woman, the Shamima, when she got to Syria and she saw her first bin full of severed heads, she says it didn't faze her. Did I mention that? Bins full of severed heads. I bet they started putting those in Disneyland soon because it sounds like such a great tourist attraction. I mean, yes, I want to go live in the place where they saw off so many people's heads that they have to have public bins for the disposal of the severed heads. I mean, here's what Shamima had to say on the subject. This daughter of Britannia. Let's listen to her go on about it.
Did you ever see executions?
No. No, but I saw a beheaded head in the bin.
In the bins?
Yeah, it's really bin.
What was that like when you first saw that? These are the heads of captives?
Yeah. Didn't faze me at all.
You heard it. When she saw her first severed head in the bin, didn't faze her at all. What's really going on here is this. The Islamic State, it's on the verge of total defeat in Syria. Their territory has been reduced to a single small village. I mean, hell, why am I even calling this a village? The Islamic State has been reduced to, you won't believe this, less than a 1 square kilometer patch of dirt in eastern Syria. The mighty caliphate is now a collection of 54, count them, and yes, they've counted them, 54 tents with a few hundred fighters trying to hide amongst 1,600 women and children. They are surrounded by the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. Now that the end is truly nigh, and the people inside know it, some of the Islamic State diehards, they've begun to leave the cordon and surrender, especially the women and the children. In any event, this has been going on now. In the past few months, about 20,000 members of ISIS have left the territory, surrendered. Now that the caliphate's about to be literally erased and cast into the dustbin of history, and those remaining within the 1 square kilometer tent encampment are about to be wiped out, now people like Shamima Begum, they want to leave Syria and go back to Europe, and in her case, the United Kingdom. You see, Shamima, she's about 9 months pregnant. She's about to give birth. Her previous 2 children, born of her Islamic State husband, they're both dead, killed apparently. The friends she went to Syria with, they're also dead. I didn't see what happened to her husband, but presumably he's also dead or soon to be dead, as he's not with her at the detention camp where she's being held. In the camp, conditions are so bad that over the past month, 51 children have died, mostly from the freezing cold and the lack of medical care. So suddenly the life of an ISIS bride doesn't look like it's got much of a future, and she wants to go back to the United Kingdom. Is she sorry? Is she regretful at all for betraying her country? Is she sorry for bringing shame to her family, shame to her community by joining essentially the worst group of people on the planet Earth since probably Mao, Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, people like that? Not at all, says Shamima Begum. Listen to this.
You said you didn't regret coming to be part of the caliphate.
No, I don't regret it.
You've got to be kidding me. Lawrence Southern handed out a harmless leaflet in Luton. She's an enemy of the state and can never enter the UK again. This woman, she joined the transnational terrorist group that was actively committing terrorist attacks inside her country at the time. The United Kingdom, in effect, committing treason by joining an enemy during wartime. Not only will she be allowed to enter the UK again, I seriously doubt she'll even face any serious prison time. Why can I make this outrageous claim? Because many other returned Islamic State members, they've not been prosecuted. According to a 2017 article by the UK's Telegraph newspaper, hundreds of Britons who went to Syria or Iraq in recent years, they've returned to the United Kingdom, and the authorities decided not to charge most of them. Jihadis, fresh off the battlefield, returned to Britain, unrepentant, and still holding violent extremist views. Nothing happened to them. That's the problem with treating terrorists no differently than you would a bank robber or a common criminal. Joining the Islamic State, it's not merely a criminal act. It's joining an entity that is in a state of war against your country. This is an act of treason, beyond the traditional confines of being handled as a criminal case. What happens when you join a combatant in wartime is that you place yourself in a legal category of enemy combatant. An unlawful enemy combatant is that by the strictures of the Geneva Convention, to which the United Kingdom is a signatory to. A terrorist group is not a lawful enemy combatant. Such persons, they ought to be held at the UK equivalent of the US facility at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, until the end of hostilities with the Islamic State in accordance with the rules of international armed conflict. Perhaps a detention camp could be built, say on Diego Garcia. It's an atoll just south of the equator in the middle of the Indian Ocean and part of the Chagos archipelago. Officially what's known as the British Indian Ocean Territory. About as far away from anywhere you can get on the planet Earth that you could stick somebody without sending them, to Antarctica. You stick people like Shamima Begum. You stick them there so that going forward, anyone who gets the stupid or insane idea to go off and join an Islamic terrorist group that's declared war on their country knows that if and when said group gets their ass kicked and they're all but exterminated and wiped out by the Allied forces, that they're not going to be going back home to live with mommy sleeping in their room that they grew up in. You send them to spend the remainder of their lives in a cage on a ship moored just outside the 3-mile limit of this tropical hellhole, 1,500 miles over nothing but ocean from anywhere, and then you see how many people go jihadi, knowing that there's no escape hatch if things go badly, and get a return trip home. It's ridiculous that people like Brittany Pettibone, her husband Martin Selner, and Lawrence Southern are deemed too dangerous to admit into the country, but a woman who doesn't even regret or apologize for her membership in ISIS is in effect still a member of ISIS. She's not repudiated her membership or her radical Islamist beliefs. Somehow, Shamima Begum is going to be allowed back in and in all likelihood, at worst, get a slap on the wrist and gain the generous benefits of the UK welfare system and her as of yet unborn child too. Don't forget that. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. Like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell to keep up with the new content. If you want to support or reward the channel financially, you can still use Patreon for the moment if you're one of the diehards still around there. But you can use the direct PayPal link below too. If you're watching this on BitChute, you can make use of that handy-dandy tip/pledge button at the bottom of the player. Still no love from Subscribestar. Wish I could give you that alternative right now, but until they give the green light, we're still in a holding pattern. That's the end of this video, so for those of you who had the fortitude to endure to me prattling on for this long, thanks for watching.